We're doing Siman Kuf Chaf, Halacha Hey. Sakin Shechitah. Mechaber says if you have a knife that you use for Shechitah, and then the Ramah sticks in, or Sakin Shema Shitin boy, or a butcher's knife that you use for pulling off the hides. Yesh Misha Aymer Shein Tzarech Tefillah. The Mechaber says there are those who say it doesn't need Tefillah. It's not a Beferish Gemara. He says it doesn't need Tefillah. I'll explain why in a second. Yesh Cholkim. The Ramah says that there are those who argue v'toivu by bracha. So the Ramah's machriya that what you should do is you should toivu without bracha. And then the Ramah sticks in another case that's similar. Habarazim shemasakim and hamatzis. That's the Reddler, the thing that you roll over the matzahs to make the holes in it. Einim tzrichin tefillah, you don't need to toivel them. Now the last part of the Ramah, I'll read it to you. We talked about it last time. We said last time that doesn't really belong in this, and seemingly belongs in Halacha Dalet. The cover that you put on bread to bake it, that doesn't need tefillah. We spoke about it last time that that belongs in Halacha Dalet. We spoke about it there. What it's about.
Can you translate it?
What?
What are you doing?
Cover.
How do you cover bread?
I guess that when you bake it, you put some kind of cover on top of it.
You ever do that?
No, I don't ever do that.
Have you ever heard anyone do that?
No, I don't know what it is.
Do you ever bake bread open?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, you bake bread open. Always bake open. Always bake bread open. Bread, bake open.
Nobody's cool.
Because that's what it means? Kisu shekayfen al pas means...
No, they used to stick it, you know how they used to, people used to slap it on the side of the wall. They didn't cover it, I don't know what it means. I'm not sure what it means.
Some people are looking forward to this year, specifically for those.
I spoke about it last time.
Did you translate it last week?
Yeah, I spoke about it last time, but I didn't say Can we talk about it last time?
You can make bread in a frying pan.
Okay. Let's get back to our din. Okay? The last time we spoke in Halacha Dalet, we saw that you only have to do Tevillas. You only have to do Tevillas Keilim if Klei touches food. Okay, that's basically what it's in Halacha Dalet. It has to touch the food. If it doesn't touch the food, you don't have to do Tevillas Keilim. Some people think, and our din is going to talk about, which things qualify as food. Okay, when we say it has to touch food, that was last din, it has to touch the food. Our din is going to talk about which food it has to touch. Like a Sakin Shechitah touches food, it touches an animal, that's going to eventually be supper, but that's where our din is going to talk about what things qualify as food, which are things of food that are not food. Okay? Now, some people think, mistakenly, that you only need Tevillas Keilim for things that you use at a meal. I mean, the Gemara does use the word Klei Seudah, things that you use at a meal. But the Gemara says very clearly, gives a long list of things that need tefillah. I'll list you some of them. Yoris, that's pots, and kumkum, musin, mchamin, that's hot water pots. We'll talk about it in Mitzvah next time, why the Gemara sticks that in. Shvudim, askaloris, are spits and grills. Well, the Gemara says all those things need tefillah. Okay, so all those things are things that are not used at a meal. That's exactly the point of the Gemara. You don't use a pot at the meal. You don't use a spit. You use it to prepare the food. So our din is talking about that it doesn't only have to be used at the meal. Even in preparing the food for the meal, it also counts as having food contact. Okay. So the Mechaber says, but even so, the Gemara does say that it has to be Klei Seudah. So Klei Seudah means it's things that have to do with the meal. So it might be the pot that prepares the food for the meal, but the food has got to be ready to eat. Okay? It's got to be the thing that makes the final preparation, the last steps that deals with the food when it's about to be eaten. So the pot that you cook your soup in, that's the pot that you can eat at if the food is not ready to eat. But the sakin shechitah, the knife that you use for shechitah, after you shech the animal, you still have a lot of steps before you're ready to eat it. You have a lot of things that have to happen before you're able to eat it. So that knife doesn't count. That knife, it's touching what will be food, but it's too far removed, and that's not considered Klei Seudah. Okay?
What
So
if that food is going to be cooked again? And not more preparation.
I'm going to talk about that at the end. Okay?
What? Two cooking?
Because you cut fish, but you never eat this fish raw. You're going to cook it again.
I'm going to...
After the sleep, you're cooking up the meat.
No. Yeah, we know. Yes, theoretically.
I'm going to maybe talk about this and maybe next time. Okay? Okay. So that's what the Mechaber says. The Sakin Shechitah, Mechaber says doesn't need tefillah. Okay, that's what the Mechaber says. The Ramah says that no, the Sakin Shechitah is considered Klei Seudah because Yesh Chokum that it's considered Klei Seudah because the Lamai says it helps the food get ready for eating. So Hagam that it's not close to the meal, right? You have still many steps. You have to cook it before you're able to eat it. Alpha Pekin is still considered that has contact with the food because that's the food you're going to eat for. Okay, and the Ramah ends off that we're machmer for that shita, but he didn't say a machmer. He says v'toiv bracha. You don't make a bracha because you're going so hard. And even to toiv, he says v'toiv. It's good to do tefillah magic. Okay, so that's what the Ramah says at the beginning about a sakin shechitah, or what they stuck in other words in sakin shemav shita. Same idea. Okay, what you used to skin the animal. Okay, But the next part of the Ramah is hard to understand. What is he talking about? He says, Habarzim Shem Sakim Ben HaMatzis, that's the Reddler, the thing you roll over the matzahs to make the hole in it. He says, and it's Shechitah. You don't have to tell it. Now, what happened? I just told you that the Ramah holds. He says you should be machmir to say that if a thing will be used in the preparation of the food, even at a very early stage of the preparation for the food, you have to tovel bracha. So why does he then say that the barzlim, that the Reddler does not need to be tovel? Why not? What's the difference between the Reddler and the thing that you take this hides off with, or this hakan shechitah? Both of them deal with the food when it's in its raw state before you could eat it, and eventually you can be able to eat it. So why would he not tell us? What?
Meat could be eaten rooms.
So you think that he's only saying it because you can eat it raw? No, that's not the truth.
The raw things don't change the nature of the product.
The what?
It doesn't change anything. It's like holes in it, right?
And therefore?
It's not preparing.
It's not like a Klei Seudah. You can't eat an animal without shechitah.
Or taking out the skin. Here, what are the iron rolling pins?
I don't think that not for just the rolling pin.
Everybody says it means the Reddler. Okay.
Rolling pins are wood usually.
Everyone says it means the Reddler. Okay, go ahead. Stop it. But it's a part of making the food ready. It's part of making the food ready.
Really?
You can announce it without.
If you take a picture,
No, if you don't make holes in it, then it becomes pita.
if you take a picture,
It has nothing to do with good. I'm trying to make this food. I need to have Reddler. It's like cutting it.
if you take a picture of all your food before you eat it, does the camera place it up?
No, we'll talk about that next time.
It doesn't change anything. It's not,
Of course it does.
It doesn't do anything to the food.
Of course it does. It makes it stay flat instead of being puffed up.
It's not adding flavor. It's not adding anything to it. It's not
It makes
anything.
it flat and crunchy instead of puffed up.
I say a textural change is not considered a substantial Klei Seudah.
Where did you come up with that from?
You're wrong.
No, okay, so I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay, the truth. Okay, so all parts can talk about it. So the Taz and Shach answer this question. Okay, I didn't make up this question. Okay, you make as if no, of course not. It would be Klei Seudah. We're going to talk about those kind of funny stuff next time. But anyhow, the Taz says, he says, you know why the Ramah says it? He says, really the Ramah says you should tevel you should tevel those things by bracha also. The Reddler you should tevel by bracha also. The reason why he said v'tevel v'yish cholkim and v'tevel bracha on the beginning, because it happens to be that the Issa the Heter, who's the Machmir, happens to be talking about a Sakan Shechitah. So the Ramah wanted to stick in his comment on Sakan Shechitah. But really, the Reddler is the same thing. The Barzim Shem Sakim Ben HaMatzis is the same thing. He really meant it, and he just stuck it over there because that's where the person can speak about it. By the case of Sakim Shechitah. When he stuck in the other case, he sort of, he knew that you would understand that in that case you should tell Sabbath bracha. Okay? That's what the Taz is. It's not a diak. Of course the Barzim needs to be too bracha. It's just, they're all stuck it in for whatever, because it fit. That's what the Taz is. The Shach says, no, nothing to do. The Shach says that, the only reason why the Ramah is machmir by sakan, why anyone's machmir by sakan shechitah is because a sakan shechitah you could at least use it. There are other ways to use it that would be Klei Seudah. You can take the sakan and you should cut a potato with it. You can cut an apple with it. You can use the sakan for other things. So that sakan, at least in theory, is a thing that could be used as a real Klei Seudah. But if you have something that mamish has no use with meal-ready foods, like the Reddler, there's nothing in the world you could do with that thing to poke holes in. What are you going to do with that thing? Has no use at all like that. So in that case, the Ramah, even the Ramah would not be machmir to type that thing. Okay? So the Shach is telling us a kula. When the Ramah says Hapasim Shesakun Hamatzis don't need tefillah, the Ramah is being makel to tell us that the only time you have to do tefillah for something that is in the raw state when you use the food before it's ready to eat. That's only if that kli could also be used when the food is cooked. But if it can never be used like that, then even a wouldn't be machmir. So now,
Probably syrup, you know?
yeah. So what's going on? I'm about to say that, which is according to the Shach, the Ramah is very close to what the Mechaber says, much closer to the Mechaber, but it doesn't really have such a havana. What does he mean? What's the reason? Why should it depend if theoretically I could use this knife for that thing? What's the difference? I don't have an answer to that. What really do I care that I could use this knife to cut apples? But that's not what I'm doing it for. This is a knife that I'm doing for Shechitah, or a knife Shemav Shitim by. Why do I care that I theoretically I could use it for the other thing? I don't really understand.
Together with this other thing, which by itself is not a chayv. You gotta have those two things together, right?
There has to be something else that would be chayv in tefillah. It was like for cutting apples. I could use a knife for cutting apples, and I have in mind to use it in the raw state to cut meat. So I don't know why should they go together. Either it shouldn't need to be at the meal, or even if it's used in raw. But why? If it's used in raw, but it's sort of like, it's close. It's the kind of thing that you buy in the house when you're part of the store. What's the difference? So it's not clear. But according to the Shach, the Ramah is much closer to the Machaber than the Taz would say. They would both be agreeing that Klei Seudah means things that you use at a meal. It's a little extension if you're not going to use it at the meal. But it could be, then that's already also high. Okay. So, let's go through some examples. Today we have a lot of examples. Let's go through some examples of cases where the Taz and the Shach would argue. Okay? So the first one.
First one's recorded the law.
Yeah.
Right there.
Second.
Yes, okay. Besides the one that are on the page, what happened? I lost one. Okay. My personal, something's not working here. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, here, a coffee mill. Okay, I use a grinder. I have a grinder that's meant for grinding up coffee beans. So, after you grind up the coffee beans, you still have to cook them before you want to eat them. So we're still a step away from being able to use them. They're not used at the Seudah the way it is. So, according to the Shach, that thing would not be having to feel at all. According to the Taz, since it's used in the making of the food, it's in the food preparation, even in the raw stage, the Ramah would say that, according to the Taz, the Ramah would say you mechuyev to be tevel. Now, about the I'm going to have more examples. We're going to fill up the bottom of the page. But we have an interesting Prima Gadol. Okay, I'm going to mention this Prima Gadol a few times. Not this line of it. There's Prima Gadol in Hagal's Keilim.
You copied the Prima Gadol in your coffee.
What? I did. Rechaim coffee.
Oh, so the coffee mill was a Prima Gadol.
Yeah. Okay. So the Prima Gadol in Sim Taftim Aleph, that has a whole bunch of things that he says about our din. Okay, right about our din, he says a bunch of things about Tevillas Keilim. And he says like this. He first brings the Taz from the Shach for the case that he has. This is not the first words of Prima Gadol. And then he says, Rechaim coffee mill, L'shach Tevillah B'bracha, the Tzarech Bishul. Okay? Now, that way it reads it now, I can't read it the way it says. Because it says a coffee mill, according to the Shach is the one that says that it has to have a way that you can use it for cooking food, Tevillah B'bracha, the Tzarech Bishul. The Tzarech Bishul means this, because you're going to have to cook the coffee beans afterwards. So, we understand, that means, that's why it fits into our din, because you have to cook it afterwards. So now, really, it should say,
that's like Klei Bracha.
No. So I have two ways of rewording this. Either it should say is Lataz Tevillah B'bracha, which is what he had said before in other cases like that. He's been machaz in the Shach and the Taz. He says this case like this. A bunch of cases there. So either it should say Lataz Tevillah B'bracha, because according to the Taz he did, but according to the Shach it needs a bracha. Or another translation how to read it is he needs is afilu l'shach, and what he means is that maybe in our day, we use a coffee mill only for coffee. But it could be in his day, the coffee mill could have been used for grinding other things also. And it wasn't unusual for someone to grind other things also. So that even according to the Shach, it needs tefillah. Even according to the Shach, it needs tefillah because you can use it to grind up spices and other things like that also. And there are other things that you could grind with it. He actually talked about a spice grinder right before it. So maybe he means is afilu l'shach. You need tefillah. The blood bracha is in parentheses. The Loi Bracha, the Tzarech Bishul is like in parentheses. Even according to Shach, you need Tevillah because it has other uses also. Okay? It's not clear to me but the way it reads as now, I don't get it exactly.
The new Prima Gadol.
Yeah, the new ones say the same thing as the old ones. So I don't know which is the right way to read this thing. Okay.
We have to read it from the beginning.
We have to read the Prima Gadol. You could read it. Go on. Okay. Okay. Now you'll see in Prima Gadol there's a lot of other cases. Okay, Zolzai. Okay, so we're back to our nafkaminas between the two then. Okay, next. Cookie cutters. Okay? All the things you're going to see here are things that you use it with raw. You can't do anything else with cookie cutters. So for finished food, a dough hug.
You could use it for watermelon.
For watermelon? A cookie cutter?
You could use it for Play-Doh. For kids to play.
Yeah, but Play-Doh. You don't eat it.
It's not supposed to be.
Food. Okay, so you could use it.
Maybe your kids don't.
Wait a second. You use a cookie cutter to cut watermelon to shape? I never heard of that. If you're interested in it, I believe you. If you can, no. If it's the truth, then we say that. So then everyone will be masking that needs to blood broth.
A knife could be used. A knife are used. I guess it's not going to be. I don't know how many people use a cookie cutter to cut watermelon.
So the question, you see,
you really use it for
no. If he uses it for them. The question is, but the normal people who have cookie cutters use it for cutting dough into shapes. So he's saying if it has a possibility. So yes, he's saying is if he says this, If it has a possible use to cut for watermelon, then it's chayiv.
Package is not normal.
So Yossi says this, but we can't be crazy. If it comes one Meshuggah that has a way to use it, doesn't mean that that's normal. So you have to find out how normal it is to use them. I'm coming to that. Four separate things.
So what if it could cut watermelon?
Okay, so you missed. I can't repeat it.
It's not. It's a thing. People do that.
Oh, if it's common enough, we'll get to a certain reasonable amount of people. I've never heard of it, but if it is, it is. Okay. We're the not know what's right.
So discounted that people use it. So very cool. So discounted that people use it for.
Okay, if it's true, that's true. I believe it. Okay, fine. An egg yolk brush. Now, egg yolk brushes are usually not made out of materials that need to be touched. Usually, an egg yolk brush is not made of the right materials that need to. But if it would be, okay, it's used for things that are raw, meat hammer. It's called a tenderizer if you want to call it nicely.
For potatoes.
Use what? Meat tenderizer for potatoes?
Mashed potatoes.
No.
I never saw someone mashing potatoes with that. Use a fork or.
Yeah, it's much bigger. You're doing a lot of potatoes. You just smash them.
It's like a hammer. It's a hammer. It's not like a hammer. It's to flatten out schnitzel or whatever it is. Okay. Pasta extruder. Okay. If you have an attachment on your food processor that takes dough and stretches it into pasta shapes. Okay. So again, the pasta needs to be cooked. The way it is right now, you can't use it. So it's that would be machlokes Taz and Shach, a rolling pin, which some people thought. I think the person don't say that. The barzal means a rolling pin. And then a whisk, okay? A whisk is every time I have whisk, I write whiskey by mistake, okay? A whisk is a thing that you beat up like raw eggs. Okay, so here's a bunch of...
People eat cookie dough. Does that change the status?
People eat cookie dough.
Yeah.
No.
So what do you want to change? What are you trying to change?
Okay.
Rolling pin?
Okay,
Yeah.
so now, the Shach has another example. The Shach has another example that I didn't put on there because I don't know if any of us use that. And he says, like, if you have a needle for sewing together meat, okay, like, you want to sew together, you take raw meat, you want to make a roast out of it, or you want to stuff it, or something like that, then you sew it back together.
They use a netting, don't they?
We use a netting, but you can also sew it back together. So he says that for stuffing, after you stuff it, you sew it back together. So that's another example of the machlokes that he would have. Now, there's another case that the Shach talks about that I'm mentioning will be for next time about something for wine barrels. Okay, we'll talk about it next time. You have to come back. And then he gives another example that I don't think is so accurate for us nowadays. I'm not sure. I don't think so. And that is, the Shach gives another example, which is what we call a poultry shears or a chicken scissor. Okay, the Shach says, basically it's a scissor. Okay, but it's a scissor that you use this scissor to cut raw meat. Okay, so the Shach says, since there's nothing that you could do with this thing that would use it for food that's finished, I would hold this not chayv and tevilah. And in other words, the Taz would hold that it is because you.
No, they're getting on Shabbos.
So I'm about to say that in his day, I'm sure that was true. But nowadays, they recommend using those scissors for, like, if you want to trim things, if you want to cut your vegetables very thin, you want to cut your vegetables very skinny, you want to make, cut scallions into tiny little pieces. So instead of using a knife, it's easier to use the scissors. So I'm thinking the people who sell those actually describe other uses for those aside from them just using them for raw meat. So l'chayra, the Shach was just talking about in his situation, but us, like l'chayra, that it's used even for cooked food. So then, both would agree that it's chayv and tevilah. Okay. Chayv and tevilah, whether it needs a bracha or not, depends on why you bought it. If you bought it to use it for raw meat, like in my house, it's for raw meat, so then it's tevilah b'loi bracha. If you buy it with that thing in mind also, you're going to cut vegetables, you're going to cut up your salad like that, then it needs a brachos. Okay. So the Gra has an interesting way of looking at this thing. He says, the Shach is really correct that that's what the Ramah means. The Shach is correct that the Ramah means is that the barzlim are different because the barzlim can be used for finished food. That's true. He says, but they're both wrong. So that's what the Ramah means, but they're not correct. And he says something which the Taz is meramezet, and he says or what David said before, which is that a sakin shechitah doesn't have any other uses for it. Okay, like he said, I don't think the Gra brings those words that it's muchas machas muktzah machas chizarn kiss. People don't use what? Does he say? Okay, people don't use a sakin shechitah for anything. They don't cut tomatoes with a sakin shechitah. Okay, so when the person who said that sakin shechitah, a sakin shechitah needs tevilah, those are the ones who said it needs tevilah. They're saying that it needs tevilah because even though it cannot be used for finished foods, okay, you can't use it. So the shach is correct as what shach and the Ramah is. That's what the Ramah meant. But the Taz is correct in din. The Taz is correct. Okay, so he said he's reading the Ramah right, but it's not correct in din. Correct in din is that that you have to tell all those things, even if it's used in the raw stages, like a mamash, like a sakan shechitah, because sakan shechitah be'etzem is not a thing that you can use for anything else. Okay, so
because you can't use it for anything else.
No. Is this a thing? Is a sakan shechitah something that has a use for foods that you use at a meal? So he says, no, it's not. And even so, poskim say that's chayim in Tevillas. So they must mean it's chayim tefillah even if you use something raw, even if it has no possible use for eventually for time, like the tazit, even if it has no possible use to use it at the meal. It's considered Klei Seudah because it gets the food.
So Ramah like a shach, but the halacha of the taz is right.
Right, the halacha of the taz is right. The Ramah, the shach is reading the Ramah correctly, but the taz is right that those chayim tefillah, even if you have no way to use it, you have a meat hammer, there's no way you can use it at a meal. But even though it's chayim tefillah, it's chayim tefillah because it is used in making food ready. Okay, so. And maybe, I don't know, but maybe the shach will say differently, that when we just have to have something that's raw, we don't understand the shach altogether. Okay. Now, on the other hand, so the Gross says that effectively the Taz is right, and there are others I know of who say that also. However, Chacham says not that. Chacham passes like the shach, and L'chayro, we have reason to be silent on that and be makel of that shach, not just because Chacham says it, but you have to remember that the following deek, this is a deek from Chavos Binyamin, he says even the Ramah, who says that you have to toivel the sakan shechitah, he doesn't say you have to toivel it. He says, v'toiv l'toivel b'bracha, okay? He says, it's a good thing to toivel it. It's like, when he's not very strongly taking on the shita that you mechuyev to toivel. He says, v'toiv l'toivel. So for something that's only toivel, and so machlok gets a taz and the shach which we learn it. Chacham says to be mekel, so there's good reason to be mekel and not be toivel this long list of things that are on this list over here, like the way the shach says. Chacham says it. Chacham doesn't bring this deal. Chacham says just only brings the shach to be mekel. That's an hutzi. Okay, now I have a bunch of other examples for you. They're not going to be on the screen. Sorry. A bunch of other examples of things that are totally in these dinim over here. Okay, so we'll just go through them. Okay, the first is like this. Peeler. So peelers could be used for lots of things that are raw, like carrots and cucumbers and apples. I don't mean raw. I mean things that you could eat as is. You could peel apples. What? Chocolate. Chocolate is actually a good example. Okay, put chocolate on the side. Okay, but people use it to make on a cake, to decorate a cake. It makes like little thin shavings. Okay, anyhow, but regular people could use it for carrots and cucumbers. Carrots and cucumbers, which are ready to eat right then. As soon as you peel it, you're ready to eat it. So it's everybody, Taz and Chapter both agree that you're chayiv in tefillah for the peeler. Now, whether you have to make a bracha or not depends on why you bought it. If you bought the peeler because you want it to be a potato peeler, that's all you're going to do with this, use it for peeling potatoes, then it's a sakan shechitah. It's only used for something that will have to be cooked before you're able to eat it. And therefore, you would not make a bracha. If you bought it for all these uses, you're going to peel carrots and potatoes with it, so then it needs the bracha to it. Okay, but everyone will, Taz and Shach will agree that it needs tefillah. Whether it needs a bracha depends on why you bought it for, what you're going to do with it once you bought it. Okay?
Say person eats raw potato peels.
Yeah.
So now what?
So then he's buying it for something that he's going to use it right away. He's making it edible. Yeah, that's what he is. Okay, now, graters and grinders and shredders and food processors, all those kinds of things, they are also used to puree and grind things that are edible as is. Think of someone who purees vegetables, or he slices fruits with a grinder, or the Pri Megadim brings an example of somebody grind horseradish, okay, and you eat it as is once it's ground. So you need tefillah for those things. Then again, the bracha, whether you need bracha, depends on why you bought it. If you bought this thing to shred potatoes to make potato kugel, then it's not going to need a bracha because you bought it without kavanah to eat it for foods that you can eat right away. If you use it for all kinds of other stuff that are edible right away, then you're mechuyev in tefillah. Now, I mentioned
it doesn't really depend on why you bought it, right?
That's how you're going to use it. Yeah, what you're going to do with it. Yeah, what you're going to do with it. That's right. Okay, the Pri Megadim says two examples. I said to you the one about the chrein. He also says that people use it to grind bread. Okay, and when he said it, I was at first very surprised by that. Because in my mind, everybody who grinds up bread, like make breadcrumbs, is always going to then cook it further. So it's true the bread was edible before you started, but
cook it further on the food item.
Yeah. You're going to cook it first. You're going to make a keilim out of it. You're going to make schnitzel out of it. You're going to make stuffing out of it. You're always going to take it.
Or you're going to put on chicken.
And what do you do with the chicken?
No, but it's already cooked.
No.
The chicken is not cooked.
No, but the pickles are.
I know that, but you're not. The criteria here. Right? The criteria is Klei Seudah. The criteria is this: what you do when you're ready to eat the food. When you're grinding up breadcrumbs, it's because you're about to do something else and then be able to eat it. You're going to have to cook it first and then be able to eat it. So at first, I was very surprised. I didn't really understand what he meant. I actually thought it had to do with a different question. Then I met Rabbi Younger, and I asked him. I actually was asking him a different one. I said to my Rabbi Younger, I said, the Prim doesn't mean this two Yiddish words. I don't know who he's talking about. And he told me what the words mean. He knew exactly what he was talking about. Some strange place. Anyhow, but he said to me, no. He says, it's not a guy. I asked him this question. He said, what does Prim doesn't mean about the bread? He says, no, it's pashut. He says, they're all the people who can't eat bread, and they want to grind the bread before they eat it. They put it into the applesauce and they eat it. He says, it's pashut. Yeah, of course you can eat it as is. You know, to him that was obvious. Okay. Anyhow, so that's what he means. Okay. Next. Okay, next. Okay, now I have some special kinds of cutters. Okay, so the first is a French fry cutter. Okay, a French fry cutter takes potatoes and it makes them into the shapes of French fries. Okay, so it for sure does not need a bracha. Because if you're using to cut French fries of course need to be cooked afterwards. Okay, whether it needs teal altogether, whether it's totally in the taz and the shaft, will depend on whether it could use other stuff also. Okay, I don't know whether you could use a French fry cutter to cut. Can you cut squash like that? People do that. There's such a thing. Put other foods through it that are ready to be eaten raw. I don't know whether it does or does. Well, if it used for other foods that can be eaten as is, that it's everyone would agree that it's chayv teal. If not, then only the taz. Okay. Then there's all kinds of other stuff. All kinds of other shapers, a melon buller, an ice cream scooper, an apple core, a pizza cutter, an egg slicer, and the thing you squirt icing out of. All those things are for Klei Seudah. When you cut them, the food is ready to eat. If you slice your apples, you go through he has this fancy apple slicer. Then when you finish, it's ready to eat. Okay, so all those things, you scoop out melon balls. Okay, so then it's ready to go. So those are chayv and tevillah with the bracha. Okay, those things will all be chayv and tevillah with the bracha. Okay, if you have some special use for it that's not going to be used for food that's ready to eat. I don't know if you had some kind of sugar use for it.
Cookies.
What?
Using a melon ball for cookies.
Yeah, if the same guys use the cookie cutter to cut their melon, use the melon cutter to cut their cookies, you know? So then it wouldn't be chayv and tevillah.
No, it's a scoop out
Cookie dough. Okay, yes. So if that's what you're going to do with it, then then no bracha. Then it's still chayv and tevillah, but then no bracha. Okay. Some maybe these things are obvious to you. A fruit juicer, or a corn popper, or a meat slicer. Okay, those things are all, to my mind, Klei Seudah. Meaning, when you finish with the thing, when you make popcorn, it's ready to eat. It's like a pot to cooking in. It's just a specialized pot. If you juice orange juice, when you juice it, when it's finished, you're ready to drink it. It's ready to go. So those things are all chayv and tevillah with the bracha. Of course, all these things I'm telling you are assuming that they're metal glass, and some of these things were electric. So electric, we're going to talk about in a couple of dinner. Okay, but there's a special coolers for electrical appliances. Okay, a colander, a strainer. Okay, so most people use their colanders like to strain pasta. Okay, well then that's of course Klei Seudah. Once you finish straining it, it's ready to go. You're ready to eat it. You strain the cooked pasta, so it's chayv and tevillah. Okay, there are some people, at least one person I know, who has a special colander just for rinsing raw quinoa in it. Okay, you can imagine who I know who has that. Okay, so rinsing raw quinoa. Okay, because you're supposed to rinse it off certain grains of it before you eat it. Okay, so raw quinoa. So if that's what you have it for, so it's chayv and tevillah even according to the shach, because it could be used for pasta also, it could be used for lots of other things also. But since you're using it for things that will not be Klei Seudah,
maybe if most people, the manufacturer, most people do that, even everybody's going to be masking to that.
Everyone's masking to what? It's chayv and tevillah with a bracha?
Yeah.
No, it's not chayv. No, it's not.
Because when you buy
yeah, if a guy buys a knife. Okay, if I buy a knife, it's going to be a din later on. No, it's not din from here. It's going to be later. If I buy a knife, okay, I go to the house restaurant, I buy a knife, but I use it as a box cutter. I'm not chayv and tevillah. Even though every normal person who bought it uses it as a knife. So if I buy this thing dafka to use not as a Klei Seudah, I'm not going to use it as a Klei Seudah. I'm going to use it to wash quinoa on it. So then it's not chayv. Let's say I use it to wash rocks. Like chayv and tevillah? No, of course not.
The other way also, if I take something that's not meant for Klei Seudah, the manufacturer is not meant. I'm going to use dafka Klei Seudah.
Yeah, this could be also same thing.
It's like you have the crack nuts. Yeah, the crack coconuts, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's going to be the same thing later on. Okay. So
no, but the cooler, you and the Yid made it into Klei Seudah.
Right. We're going to see that. It's going to be a shiloh in the lid in halacha ches. When we talk about it, we get to halacha ches. Okay. Last, a bunch of little things. Okay. There's a bunch of little things that are all used for things that are ready to eat. I have here, let's say, a pancake flipper. It's called a peel, actually, in Yiddish and in English. A skewer and a spatula. It's in tough to mouth. A skewer and a spatula and the corn on the cob pokers. I don't know what you call them. The things that hold the corn on the cob. Corn holders. Okay, all those things, assuming, of course, they're metal or glass, they're chayv and tevillah. They're Klei Seudah. They use them right when you're ready to eat. Okay. An onion chopper. Okay, there's such a thing as an onion chopper. Depends on. Of course, it's chayv and tevillah because people cut onions that are ready to use. They put into a salad straight to use. But if you only use it to cut onions that you're about to saute, or you're only about to cook those onions and putting them into a soup, then it will be tevillah blood bracha for you. Okay. Mixing spoon, of course, needs tevillah. Okay, a spoon that you use for mixing, but the spoon rest. Okay, so the fancy people have a spoon rest. It's on your counter to keep your counter clean. So that doesn't touch the food. We spoke about last time, I think that incidentally touched the food. It's not having feel. Okay, the last case is.
Touching the food is becoming like Klei Seudah. There's no shayach to it.
What it touches food?
Like the rest.
The rest. It will touch when you put the spoon down and it touches food. Right? So we spoke about last. I told you last time we talked about that it touches food. There's not. Yeah. So remember the Dr. Yeah, we talked about last time because the Dr. Chuba brings people who say that it's chayv tevillah. We said that we don't pass them that. The Dr. Chuba brings people that says that the basin that you wash dishes in you have to turn to. We talked about it last time. Okay. Anyhow, you listen to the recording. Okay. So and the last case is a measuring cup. Okay, a measuring cup. So if I'm going to use my measuring cup only for things that are a step away from being eaten, like flour. If I'm going to use my measuring cup only for measuring flour or eggs, and I can't eat those things, so then they get tevillah without a bracha. They need tevillah because you could use the measuring cup for food items, for things that are ready to eat, but without a bracha because I'm using it as a sakat shechitah. I'm using it as a step for something that's only raw. Okay, but if I'm going to use the measuring cup for measuring out sugar, let's say, okay, or I'm going to measure, I don't know, something else I'm going to eat that I'm able to eat right away, so it's chayv and tevillah. Okay, what I'm not sure about is what happens if I'm going to use it. This is what I think you were talking about before. What happens if I'm going to use it to measure sugar, but I use it for measuring sugar for baking? Okay, I'm measuring sugar. That's what I'm measuring. But when I measure a cup of sugar, I'm not going to eat a cup of sugar. I'm measuring a cup of sugar to make a cake out of it. So I'm measuring a food which is raw and achila. But the food that I'm measuring has to go through another step of preparation. It has to be cooked now before I'm able to eat that sugar. Basically, I'm downgrading the sugar when I put it into this measuring cup. The measuring cup is not to be able to eat right now. It's to be able to prepare it tonight. So it seems to me that that's not considered not enough, because the rule here is not food. The rule here is a Klei Seudah. Is it something that you would use at a meal? Well, if this is a cup that's used for measuring in baking, then it's not useful for meals. Okay, it doesn't make a difference whether it's theoretically you could eat the sugar or not. What's important is when I scoop it with this measuring cup, do I now take it to eat right away? Is that a clear that you use at a Seudah? Well, no, I don't use it at a Seudah. I'm a baker. I'm going to use it to make food. It's hard to me. It's not like that would not be. Okay. Now we're done for today, but we have 3 other parts of Mitzvah for next time about continuation of this din about food. What is considered that it touched food or it didn't touch food to be chayv tevillah.